20 Stories of Wisdom for a Smooth Sailing Life. 20 stories to help you uncover the secrets to success that successful people don't want you to know. First story, The Way of Ancient Merchants Losing Profit but Not Honor. Are merchants only people who care about profit, who light up at the sight of money and forsake righteousness for gain? In reality, this is only a one-sided view of modern times. In ancient times, many merchants were raised with traditional values that emphasized benevolence, propriety, wisdom, trustworthiness, and ethics. They didn't conduct business solely for profit but also out of compassion. The story of Ho Min and conscience in rice trading. In Jiangxi, China, there was a rice trader named Ho Min who did business year-round in the Anhui region. One year, the area suffered a severe drought, making food scarce and prices soar. A single unit of rice cost up to 1,000 coins, yet there wasn't enough to go around. Ho Min transported a load of rice from afar, but before he could sell it, several other shop owners approached him, suggesting that they mix old and moldy rice with the new stock to increase profits. Ho Min was shocked and objected, "Rice is meant to save lives. How can we mix in bad rice just to make money? The people are already suffering enough. We must help them, not betray the will of heaven for selfish gain." The other merchants, angry at his stance, decided to compete by selling rice at lower prices. Many customers abandoned Ho Min's shop, accusing him of exploiting the situation to make a profit. However, just a few days later, customers who had bought poor-quality rice discovered that it was mixed with sand, had a moldy smell, and was full of insects. They rushed to complain, while those who had bought rice from Ho Min praised its purity and delicious taste. Soon, everyone returned to Ho Min's shop, praising him as a merchant with a conscience. No Fu and his integrity when discovering contaminated goods. No Fu, a merchant during the Qing dynasty, was known for his integrity. One year, he signed a contract to purchase 8,000 kilograms of peppercorns from a trader. When the goods arrived, No Fu's subordinates discovered that the peppercorns were contaminated. The seller, fearing damage to his reputation, offered to take back the goods and refund the money. However, No Fu refused and decided to burn the entire batch, knowing he would incur a significant loss. No Fu explained, "If the seller takes back this batch, he'll just sell it again, and countless people could be harmed. Therefore, I'll destroy it all to prevent a larger disaster." His actions garnered deep respect from everyone, showing his fairness, wisdom, and sense of responsibility. Chu Van Duc and his honesty in tea trading. Chu Van Duc, a renowned tea merchant in Huizhou during the Qing dynasty, was also known for his honesty and his unwavering adherence to business ethics. Whenever he transported tea from distant regions, even when he knew the tea was old and wouldn't fetch a good price, he would clearly mark old tea on the signboard to inform customers instead of deceiving them. Although brokers advised him to remove the old tea sign to sell at a higher price, Chu Van Duc remained resolute. To him, business could never go against conscience. It was better to lose profit than to lose honor. His adherence to principles made Chu Van Duc a respected merchant, known as Chu the Millionaire. His virtuous way of doing business is still praised to this day. Second story, The Four Realms of a Virtuous Person. A virtuous person embodies four realms: humility, magnanimity, calmness with sharpness, and deep inner cultivation. The higher one ascends in these realms, the broader their vision, the greater their wisdom, and the fuller their character becomes. Humility helps people see farther. Nian Trung and the downfall caused by arrogance. During the Qing dynasty, there was a renowned general named Nian Trung who achieved many glorious victories and was appointed governor of Sichuan with great authority. However, due to his arrogance and self-satisfaction, Nian Trung neglected proper conduct and even showed no respect to the emperor. While recruiting talents in Xi'an, a scholar named Zhang Hong sought him out. Nian Trung greatly appreciated Zhang's abilities, even claiming that he could make Zhang the top scholar in the imperial exams. However, Zhang Hong was a humble and rational man. He saw that Nian Trung, despite his power, lacked virtue, was arrogant, and would face consequences. Zhang politely declined Nian Trung's offer, feigned illness, and returned to his hometown. Not long after, Nian Trung was convicted by the emperor, and many others suffered, but Zhang Hong, having distanced himself early, escaped misfortune. The magnanimity of Shen Wende. Magnanimous people have a broader perspective. There's a saying, magnanimity is like a treasure chest of gold. The greater the capacity, the greater the blessings. Shen Wende, a well-known figure during the northern and southern dynasties, was immensely magnanimous. Once, his neighbor accused him of wearing shoes that had been lost. Instead of arguing, Shen Wende immediately took off his shoes and offered them to his neighbor. When the neighbor later realized his mistake and returned the shoes, Shen simply smiled and accepted them without complaint. His broad-mindedness earned him great admiration. The sharpness a virtuous person must have. A person with sharp insight can see through mistakes and malicious schemes. They must treat others with fairness but without weakness, kindness but without losing principles. As Confucius said, respond to virtue with virtue and to wrongdoing with justice. Kindness must be practiced on the foundation of principles, otherwise, it becomes a weakness. Inner cultivation, the pillar of a virtuous person. Inner cultivation is the ability to control emotions and actions, to maintain peace of mind in the face of life storms. Those with inner cultivation will not let trivial matters disturb their souls and will know how to perceive events lightly without losing their self-worth. Deep inner cultivation also means viewing honor and disgrace with detachment, not striving to please others at all costs. As Cao Cao once said, "Before the wine, let's sing, for life is short." When there's joy, embrace it. Once we truly understand life, we will know how to cherish it and maintain a peaceful mindset. To take things lightly and not let the past dominate the present is how a virtuous person moves through life with tranquility and minimal regret. Those who cultivate inner peace will master themselves, thus creating a life full of blessings and happiness. Second story, the four realms of a virtuous person. A virtuous person embodies four realms: humility, magnanimity, calmness with sharpness, and deep inner cultivation. The higher one ascends in these realms, the broader their vision, the greater their wisdom, and the fuller their character becomes. Humility helps people see farther. Nian Trung and the downfall caused by arrogance. During the Qing dynasty, there was a renowned general named Nian Trung who achieved many glorious victories and was appointed governor of Sichuan with great authority. However, due to his arrogance and self-satisfaction, Nian Trung neglected proper conduct and even showed no respect to the emperor. While recruiting talents in Xi'an, a scholar named Zhang Hong sought him out. Nian Trung greatly appreciated Zhang's abilities, even claiming that he could make Zhang the top scholar in the imperial exams. However, Zhang Hong was a humble and rational man. He saw that Nian Trung, despite his power, lacked virtue, was arrogant, and would face consequences. Zhang politely declined Nian Trung's offer, feigned illness, and returned to his hometown. Not long after, Nian Trung was convicted by the emperor, and many others suffered, but Zhang Hong, having distanced himself early, escaped misfortune. The magnanimity of Shen Wende. Magnanimous people have a broader perspective. There's a saying, magnanimity is like a treasure chest of gold. The greater the capacity, the greater the blessings. Shen Wende, a well-known figure during the northern and southern dynasties, was immensely magnanimous. Once, his neighbor accused him of wearing shoes that had been lost. Instead of arguing, Shen one day immediately took off his shoes and offered them to his neighbor. When the neighbor later realized his mistake and returned the shoes, Shen simply smiled and accepted them without complaint. His broad-mindedness earned him great admiration. The sharpness a virtuous person must have. A person with sharp insight can see through mistakes and malicious schemes. They must treat others with fairness but without weakness, kindness but without losing principles. As Confucius said, respond to virtue with virtue and to wrongdoing with justice. Kindness must be practiced on the foundation of principles, otherwise it becomes a weakness. Inner cultivation, the pillar of a virtuous person. Inner cultivation is the ability to control emotions and actions, to maintain peace of mind in the face of life storms. Those with inner cultivation will not let trivial matters disturb their souls and will know how to perceive events lightly without losing their self-worth. Deep inner cultivation also means viewing honor and disgrace with detachment, not striving to please others at all costs. As Cao Cao once said, "Before the wine, let's sing, for life is short." When there's joy, embrace it. Once we truly understand life, we will know how to cherish it and maintain a peaceful mindset. To take things lightly and not let the past dominate the present is how a virtuous person moves through life with tranquility and minimal regret. Those who cultivate inner peace will master themselves, thus creating a life full of blessings and happiness. Third story, humility is the foundation of wisdom and virtue. In the I Ching, it is said, "The way of heaven is unchanging." Arrogance brings loss, while humility brings great benefits. For this reason, humility is the root of accumulating virtue and is the wisdom in how to conduct oneself in life. Lao Tzu once said, "Supreme goodness is like water. Water is soft, yet it can wear down hard stone." Softness overcomes hardness, meaning that gentleness can triumph over rigidity. Heaven and earth say nothing, but the four seasons continue to rotate, and all things continue to flourish. The earth has a yielding nature, and a virtuous person must cultivate thick virtue to support all things. These teachings are profoundly true. The humility of Great Yu. Great Yu, the famous ruler of the Xia dynasty, never displayed arrogance or pride and always humbly acknowledged his own imperfections. He once said, "Even the ignorant have strengths greater than mine." It was this spirit of humility that enabled Great Yu to overcome countless obstacles, dredge the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers, save the people from floods, and establish a lasting legacy that has been praised for generations. Zhou Gong and the humility of the talented. Zhou Gong, during the Western Zhou dynasty, while assisting King Cheng to stabilize the country, continuously sought the help of talented individuals. Even when he was so busy that he had no time to dry his hair after washing it, he would stop his dinner many times to meet with guests. Zhou Gong often advised his son, "A talented person must be humble and respect the will of heaven." Arrogance leads to loss, while humility brings benefit. Everyone values humility and despises arrogance. Arrogance leads to loss, while humility brings gain. People must follow the selfless and steadfast nature of the earth, for the earth supports all things without seeking recognition. The example of Din Trung in the imperial examination. During the Ming Dynasty, Vien Lu Pham and 9 others from his district took the imperial exam. Among them was a young man named Din Trung, who was the youngest but also the most humble and respectful of propriety. Vien Lu Pham said to Phi Cam Pha, "Din Trung will surely pass the exam this year." Phi Cam Pha asked, "How can you be so sure?" Vien Lu Pham replied, "A humble person is blessed with good fortune. Of the 10 of us, no one is as humble as Din Trung. He is always trustworthy, never clings stubbornly to his own views, and knows how to listen and respect the opinions of others. These qualities are rare, and the gods will surely favor him." As expected, when the results were announced, Ding Trung passed the exam. This proves that humble, diligent, and virtuous people will be rewarded. Those who possess humility will continually progress and reach higher realms of thought. Humility is one of the principles of heaven and earth. A humble person is like water, tolerant and adaptable to any situation. Lao Tzu said, "Man follows the earth follows heaven, heaven follows the Tao, and the Tao follows what is natural." Though brief, these words contain deep philosophy. People should learn from the humble spirit of the earth. Though the earth does not seek credit, it supports all things. Those with a broad, generous heart will enjoy great blessings, while those who are narrow-minded will lose their fortune. Humility and arrogance lead to two opposite outcomes, blessings or disaster. Therefore, one must cultivate the virtue of humility to accumulate virtue and achieve success in life. Fourth story, Lao Tzu and the three priceless treasures in life. The heavens have three treasures, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The earth has three treasures, water, fire, and wind. Humans also have three treasures, essence, energy, and spirit. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu presented three precious treasures in life: kindness, frugality, and humility. Lao Tzu once said, "I have three treasures that I always keep with me. The first is kindness, the second is frugality, and the third is not daring to place myself ahead of others." These three treasures represent a simple yet profoundly deep philosophy on how to treat others and conduct oneself in life. Kindness, the strength of compassion. Kindness is the foremost virtue in Lao Tzu's three treasures. A kind heart is one that shows genuine care, compassion, and love for others. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu said, "Only those with kindness can be truly brave, and those who fight with kindness will prevail." Kindness is the force that enables people to treat each other with love and responsibility, thereby igniting courage. A prime example of kindness is Wu Qi, a famous general of the state of Chu during the spring and autumn period. He cared for his soldiers as if they were his own children, even kneeling down to suck the pus from a soldier's wound. This act moved the soldiers deeply, making them willing to sacrifice themselves in battle for him. Frugality, the foundation of virtue. Frugality is an essential value that Lao Tzu emphasized. Frugality is not only about saving material wealth, but also about persistently accumulating and avoiding extravagance and waste. This philosophy has been passed down through generations. For example, Cao Cao, a renowned figure of the Three Kingdoms period, required himself to live simply, wearing the same clothes for 10 years. Upon his death, he instructed his family to bury him modestly, without any treasure. Chu Ba-Lu of the Qing dynasty also valued frugality, advising his descendants to live sparingly to avoid falling into hardship. Frugality helps nurture virtue, build character, and create blessings for future generations. As the famous saying goes, frugality compensates for intelligence, and saving cultivates virtue. Frugality not only allows one to live well, but also wins the respect of others, preserving blessings for the future. Not daring to place oneself ahead, humility is a noble virtue. Lao Tzu suggested that a gentleman should not place himself ahead of others. This is not out of fear, but a spirit of humility. Those with virtue often allow others to advance first. Taking a step back to move forward 1,000 miles is a basic principle of sages. Humility is not about relinquishing power, but rather a way to move further and more sustainably. Yang Jisheng from the Ming Dynasty also taught his children that in life, one must learn to be humble and to give others the best. Zhang Dai, a famous scholar, also revered Lao Tzu's idea of not daring to place oneself ahead of others, believing that those who strive for fame and fortune should stand behind and let others go ahead to maintain inner peace. Lao Tzu's three treasures, kindness, frugality, and humility, are not only simple life philosophies but also bring peace and happiness. Kindness helps us build courage and love, frugality nurtures virtue and prevents waste, while humility is the way to advance far while remaining serene. Those who cherish these three treasures will find the path to true success and happiness in life. Fifth story, one should not loudly complain or blame others. This is the wise way to act. When faced with disdain from others, Tran Min, a scholar from the Lai dynasty, once said, "Poverty is not shameful. What is shameful is being poor without wisdom. A gem must be polished amidst the dirt to shine. Humans must train themselves, rise above reproach, and only then can they create great achievements." The story of the rich man and the poor man. A rich man once met a poor man and gave him some money. However, the poor man remained cold and indifferent. The rich man, a bit irritated by the poor man's attitude, asked, "I am wealthy, why do you not respect me?" The poor man replied, "Your wealth has nothing to do with me, why should I respect you?" The rich man, surprised, tested him further, "If I give you half of my wealth, would you respect me then?" The poor man responded, "If you give me half of your wealth, we would be equals, so why should I respect you?" The rich man then asked, "What if I gave you all of my wealth?" The poor man answered, "Then I would have even less reason to respect you, because now I am rich and you are the poor one." Though simple, this story carries a profound meaning. Money cannot be the measure of a person's worth. Never use wealth to boast, for it will only make you appear arrogant in the eyes of others. Han Wen and the lesson from the old washerwoman. Han Wen, a brilliant general from the Tang dynasty, before becoming a famous general, had wandered the streets, falling into despair, and at one point contemplated ending his life. An old washerwoman by the river saw him, took pity, and each day brought him a bowl of rice. Thanks to these bowls of rice, Han Wen survived day by day. One day, after eating his fill, his pride stirred, and he said boldly to the old woman, "One day I will surely repay your kindness." The old woman, upon hearing this, became angry and said, "I gave you food out of pity. A man who cannot support himself should not speak of repaying anyone." Though harsh, these words awakened Han Wen's pride and determination. Pushed by this realization, he overcame his hardships, trained persistently, and eventually became a great general with many notable victories. Sometimes, the most honest words, though painful, are the strongest motivators that push us to rise. If it weren't for that statement, would Han Wen have become the brilliant general he was? Honest words are often valuable lessons that help us become better versions of ourselves. Sixth story, those with excessive arrogance easily ruin things. It is often said that people of talent tend to carry some arrogance within them. The greater their talent, the larger their arrogance. But arrogance is also the root of pride and self-conceit, which can lead to unforeseen consequences. As Leonardo da Vinci once said, "A little knowledge makes one arrogant, while true knowledge brings humility." Like an empty ear of rice that proudly stands tall, while the full one bows down. Only humble people can be tolerant and generous, whereas the arrogant are often unable to tolerate others and easily cause things to fall apart. The lesson of arrogance from Guan Yu. Guan Yu, the renowned general of the Three Kingdoms period, wielded his famed green dragon crescent blade and rode the red hare, spreading fear throughout the land. However, his arrogance was as high as the heavens. When entrusted with guarding Jingzhou, Guan Yu marched alone to Jiangdong, looking down on both the civil and military officials there, even calling them the rats of Jiangdong. His arrogance led him to withdraw all troops from Jingzhou to reinforce the battle at Xianyang, leaving Jingzhou vulnerable. Seizing this opportunity, the forces of Jiangdong launched a surprise attack. As a result, Guan Yu lost Jingzhou and ultimately met his fiery demise. The fall of Xiang Yu, the arrogant warlord. Xiang Yu, the famed god of war during the Chuhan contention, was known for his unparalleled strength and his many victories, standing at the forefront of the vassal lords. But his arrogance also led him to become prideful, especially toward his main rival, Liu Bang, whom he never took seriously. After repeatedly defeating Liu Bang, Xiang Yu grew even more dismissive of him and refused to heed the advice of his advisors, particularly Fan Zhang, who was known as the wisest strategist of the time. Xiang Yu's refusal to listen eventually led Fan Zhang to abandon him, leaving Xiang Yu to lose his advantage in the battle for control of the land. Liu Bang quickly turned the tide, forcing Xiang Yu into a defensive position, eventually surrounding him at Gaixia. In his final moments, Xiang Yu could only drink wine, listen to his lover's farewell song, and then take his own life, leaving his grand ambitions unfinished. His arrogance, once towering, had completely vanished, leaving behind a tragic ending. Temper arrogance. Humility is the true path to life. Arrogance, when examined closely, is often just a surface reflection of deep insecurity. Those who are truly confident have no need to display it outwardly, for their strength lies in their unshakable inner core. Many who appear proud and self-important are merely hiding their weakness behind a facade of arrogance. This pride, in reality, is just a mask for a fragile spirit. To temper arrogance, to practice humility and patience, this is the true way of living. Genuine gentlemen achieve success through the virtue of humility. By not being boastful or complacent, they can reach their final goals without falling into the tragic fate of so many past heroes. Seventh story, the student who left in anger, but Confucius' advice saved 3 lives. Confucius once spoke a single sentence that saved 3 people from death. This story demonstrates the profound wisdom of Confucius and the touching teacher-student relationship between him and his beloved disciple, Yan Hui. Yan Hui was a virtuous and outstanding disciple of Confucius. One day, while on his way to work, Yan Hui stumbled upon a heated argument at a fabric store. The buyer was loudly demanding, "Why are you charging me 24 coins for 38 meters of fabric?" Hearing this, Yan Hui approached and politely explained, "You must have miscalculated. 38 meters of fabric cannot cost 24 coins. However, the buyer was not convinced and challenged him, "Who invited you to argue here? Only Confucius himself can decide what is right or wrong. Let's go find him and see who is correct." Yan Hui agreed and said, "If Confucius says I am wrong, I will let you take my hat. But if you're wrong, what will you do?" The buyer replied, "If Confucius says I'm wrong, I will lose my head." The two went to see Confucius. After listening to the situation, Confucius smiled at Yan Hui and said, "You have lost this one. Hand over your hat to him." Although Yan Hui felt upset inside, out of respect for his teacher, he obeyed without argument, took off his hat, and gave it to the buyer. However, Yan Hui felt that Confucius had been unfair in his judgment, and he lost faith in his teacher. The next day, Yan Hui made an excuse, saying he had matters to attend to at home, and asked for permission to leave. Confucius, understanding his disciple's feelings, did not stop him but simply advised, "After finishing your tasks, then go home. Remember, do not take shelter under an ancient tree, and never act before you know the full truth." On his way home, a great storm suddenly arose, with dark clouds and heavy rain pouring down. Yan Hui rushed to seek shelter under an ancient tree by the roadside. Suddenly, he recalled Confucius' advice and decided to leave the tree. No sooner had he moved away than lightning struck the tree, splitting it in half. Yen Hui was astonished by the accuracy of his teacher's warning. When he arrived home late that evening, not wanting to wake his family, he quietly entered the house. As he approached the bed, Yen Hui noticed two people lying there. Filled with rage, he drew his sword, ready to strike. But in that moment, he remembered Confucius' words, "Do not act before you know the truth." He hesitated, lit a lamp, and saw that the two people lying on the bed were his wife and his sister. Trembling, Yen Hui realized that his teacher's advice had saved him from making a terrible mistake. The next morning, Yen Hui rushed back to Confucius, knelt before him, and said, "Master, you have saved me, my wife, and my sister. How could you have foreseen these events?" Confucius gently explained, "I knew that yesterday the weather was unbearably hot, and a storm was likely, so I advised you not to take shelter under the tree. When you returned home, I sensed your anger and the fact that you were carrying a sword, so I also advised you not to act before knowing the full truth." Yen Hui bowed in admiration of his teacher's wisdom. Confucius continued, "You thought I was wrong in the fabric shop dispute, but if I had said the buyer was wrong, he would have lost his life. Yet you only lost a hat. Is your hat more important than a person's life?" After hearing this, Yen Hui felt deeply ashamed and more respectful of his teacher than ever. From that day on, Yen Hui never left Confucius' side again. Eighth story: a true gentleman is always humble and noble. The ancients had a saying, "The sky does not declare itself high, but it is indeed high. The earth does not declare itself deep, but it is indeed deep." A true gentleman always behaves humbly, even without boasting. They earn the respect of others. Tao Bin, a founding general of the Northern Song dynasty, is a shining example of humility. Despite his countless achievements, Tao Bin never boasted about his talents. Because of this, he earned the deep respect of everyone around him. The humility of Tao Bin. In the 5th year of the Xiande reign, during the later Zhou dynasty, Emperor Shizong sent Tao Bin on an inspection mission to the kingdom of Wu Yu. During his time there, Wu Yu offered Tao Bin many gifts, but he always declined them. When he was about to return, the people of Wu Yu secretly placed a large amount of gold and jewels on his boat. However, upon arriving at the imperial court, Tao Bin handed over all the gifts. The emperor was deeply moved by his honesty and returned all the gifts to him. With no other choice, Tao Bin accepted, but then he distributed the gifts among his relatives and friends. Zhao Kuan-yin, who later founded the Song dynasty and became Emperor Taizong, was an important general at the time. Many officials sought his favor, but Tao Bin was an exception. Aside from fulfilling his duties, Tao Bin never visited Zhao Kuan-yin. After becoming emperor, Taizong asked, "In the past, I wanted to get to know you better. Why did you keep your distance?" Tao Bin replied, "I was once related to the late emperor of the Zhou dynasty and also served as his high-ranking official. My only focus was on fulfilling my responsibilities. How could I dare to become close to your majesty?" Kindness and prudence. In the 2nd year of the Jianlong reign, Tao Bin was tasked with advising Lu Guangyi in a campaign to quell a rebellion in the Shu region. When all the generals returned with beautiful women and treasures as war trophies, Tao Bin brought back only books and his clothes. When the Song army captured the city of Jianling in southern Tang, he feared that his soldiers would harm innocent civilians. Pretending to be ill, he ordered his men to light incense and pray for his recovery while promising not to harm any civilians in the city. After taking the city, the Song army treated the people kindly and were warmly welcomed. Tao Bin treated the southern Tang generals like honored guests, completing his mission without boasting. Humility in everyday life. Although he held many important positions, Tao Bin lived a simple life and was not wealthy. He never took more than his official salary and always gave any leftover money to his relatives. In the Song Dynasty records, it is described that after quelling the rebellions in Shu and southern Tang, Tao Bin did not take any war spoils. While working in the court, he never contradicted the emperor or spoke of others' faults. On the road, he always instructed his coachmen to give way to other officials, even if they were of lower rank. He never called his subordinates by their names in a disrespectful manner. When they reported work to him, he would dress neatly and wear his hat properly before receiving them. His tolerance and humility in all situations earned him the admiration of many. A model of virtue and humility. Once, a subordinate of Tao Bin made a mistake and was due to be punished with a beating. However, Tao Bin ordered the punishment to be delayed. When asked why, he explained, "This official has just married. If he were punished now, his parents might think his new wife brought bad luck and blame her. This could cause distress for both of them." Tao Bin still disciplined his subordinate, but with compassion and understanding. Ninth story, being strict with oneself is the path to noble virtue. A Zen master once said, "A calm heart brings a peaceful world," implying that those who cultivate themselves must begin with self-correction. Su Heng, a renowned philosopher and educator, was a shining example of self-discipline. One summer, during a period of turmoil, Su Heng, along with many others, had to flee from danger. As they passed through Ha Duong in the intense heat, everyone felt hungry and thirsty. Suddenly, someone spotted a large pear tree by the roadside, its ripe, juicy fruit tempting everyone to climb and eat. Only Su Heng remained seated under the tree, unmoved by temptation. Someone asked him, "Why don't you pick some pears to quench your thirst?" Su Heng replied, "These pears are not mine. How could I take them carelessly?" The person laughed and said, "It's chaos now. The owner of the tree left long ago. Why be so scrupulous?" Su Heng calmly responded, "The tree may not have an owner, but doesn't my heart still have a master?" Hearing this, everyone fell silent, admiring his steadfastness. Self-reflection like Grand Scholar Su Bai. Su Bai, a grand scholar of the Ming Dynasty, was known for his intelligence and calm demeanor from a young age. While studying at a private school, he was always quiet and spoke little. One day, his teacher noticed that Su Bai often took a small notebook from his pocket. Thinking it was a toy, the teacher approached him to inspect it and was surprised to find that it was filled with Confucian classics, hand-copied by Su Bai himself. The teacher was deeply impressed. Su Bai always followed the ancient tradition of self-reflection. On his desk, he kept 2 jars, one for black beans and one for yellow beans. Each time he had a kind thought, spoke a good word, or performed a good deed, he would place a yellow bean in the jar. Conversely, if he made a mistake in his words or actions, he would place a black bean in the other jar. At first, the black beans outnumbered the yellow beans. But through continuous effort in self-reflection and improvement, the yellow beans gradually increased, and the black beans became fewer. This habit followed Su Bai throughout his life, even when he became a high-ranking official in the court. His rigorous self-discipline and constant self-improvement helped him become a highly respected and virtuous statesman of the Ming Dynasty. His strict self-monitoring showed a powerful sense of self-governance. Even when alone, he was always mindful of upholding discipline, never succumbing to material temptations or relaxing his moral standards. Self-discipline and noble virtue. Su Bai's ability to govern himself and maintain moral integrity demonstrates the importance of careful words and actions, even without supervision. Laozi referred to this concept when he said, "When the Tao is lost, virtue appears. When virtue is lost, benevolence appears. When benevolence is lost, righteousness appears. When righteousness is lost, propriety appears." When all manners and proper conduct are lost, people rely on laws and punishment to control behavior. Su Bai's life is a testament to how being strict with oneself can lead to noble virtue and a meaningful existence. Self-cultivation benefits not only the individual but also has a positive impact on society. As the Buddhist teaching goes, it benefits all people, meaning that such self-discipline not only benefits oneself but also everyone around. 10th story: the 3 levels of using people that determine success or failure in ancient times. In both life and history, there are countless examples of how using the right people led to great achievements. However, there are also many cases where using the wrong people resulted in disaster. For this reason, ancient rulers placed great importance on selecting the right individuals. Zhang Zi once said, "If you use virtuous and talented people as teachers, you will become a king. If you treat your subordinates like brothers, you will build a strong legacy. If you rely on flatterers, you will fall." These are the 3 levels of using people, which determine the success or failure of a dynasty. The first level, using the virtuous as teachers, using teachers to become kings. A ruler who is humble and wise enough to make virtuous and talented individuals their teachers will build a lasting legacy. This is the highest level of using people. History has shown that considering virtuous individuals as mentors helps establish a solid and enduring foundation. The Zhou dynasty is a prime example. King Wen of Zhou recognized the talent and virtue of Jiang Ziya and made him the national advisor. After King Wen passed away, his son, King Wu of Zhou, continued to honor Jiang Ziya as his supreme advisor. Under Jiang Ziya's guidance, the Zhou dynasty became the longest-lasting dynasty in Chinese history, enduring for more than 800 years. The second level, treating subordinates like brothers, using friends to build empires. A leader who treats subordinates like brothers or friends will establish a strong and stable empire. This is the second level of using people. Leaders who treat their subordinates with genuine affection will win their loyalty and build a great legacy. Liu Bei, the founding emperor of Shu Han, is a perfect example. He always regarded Zhuge Liang as a brother, and because of this, Zhuge Liang devoted himself fully to assisting Liu Bei in building his empire. Similarly, Liu Bang, the founding emperor of the Han dynasty, relied on the loyalty and support of Xiao He, Han Xian, and Zhang Liang, which allowed him to establish a powerful dynasty. The third level, relying on flatterers, using followers to fail. The lowest level of using people is when a leader only surrounds themselves with flatterers, people who blindly obey and never offer constructive criticism. Such individuals may make the leader feel comfortable because they never challenge them, but ultimately, this will lead to failure. A prime example of this is Qin Ershi, the second emperor of the Qin dynasty. He placed too much trust in the treacherous Zhao Gao, whose manipulations led to the fall of the Qin dynasty and Hu Hai's own demise. History is filled with similar cases where rulers who relied on flatterers saw their dynasties collapse. 3 levels and their corresponding challenges. These 3 levels of using people determine the rise or fall of a dynasty, and each level presents its own challenges. Surrounding oneself with flatterers may provide immediate comfort, but it leads to eventual failure. Treating subordinates as brothers creates a sense of responsibility because there will always be someone offering advice and supervision. Elevating virtuous people to the role of teacher places great pressure on the leader, as there will always be someone reminding them of their mistakes. For these reasons, many leaders choose the easiest path, surrounding themselves with flatterers, rather than selecting talented and virtuous individuals who will keep them on the right track. As the proverb goes, the fuller the grain, the more it bows, meaning that true leaders are humble and willing to learn from others. 11th story, 5 great wisdoms from the ancients for a smooth life. Step back, and the sky and sea will open wide. Su Dongpa, a famous poet, once said, "A truly heroic person remains calm in unexpected situations and does not get angry when insulted by others." They can do this because they have great ambitions and lofty goals. A person who fights over minor offenses cannot be considered a true hero. One time, while Su Dongpa was strolling through Huangzhou, a drunk man bumped into him, knocking him to the ground. The man neither apologized nor showed remorse, but instead insulted Su Dongpa. Rather than getting angry, Su Dongpa laughed it off. The ancients taught that stepping back isn't a sign of weakness, but a sign of self-cultivation and great wisdom. Being patient and stepping back for a moment often brings about positive results. Stay calm in times of danger. When facing danger, the most important thing is to remain calm to find the right solution. Tang Bohu, a famous scholar during the Ming Dynasty, was once invited to serve as an advisor to Prince Ning. After some time, Tang Bohu discovered that the prince was plotting a rebellion. Instead of reacting hastily, he chose to pretend to be oblivious and stayed calm, which allowed him to escape the dangerous situation. Later, Prince Ning was eliminated by the imperial court, and Tang Bohu survived thanks to his wisdom and composure. Help others without expecting anything in return. During the Three Kingdoms period, there was a physician named Dong Xian who treated patients for free and never asked for their names. He only requested that patients, after recovering, plant an almond tree. Over the years, tens of thousands of almond trees grew, forming a forest called Dong Xian's Almond Grove, symbolizing his selfless kindness. The ancients taught that doing good without expecting anything in return is one of the highest virtues. Engrave gratitude in your heart. Wei Wuzi, a noble during the spring and autumn period, instructed his son to bury his concubine alive according to the customs when he passed away. However, his son, Wei Kuo, disobeyed and set her free. Later, in battle, Wei Kuo found himself in grave danger, but miraculously, his enemy's horse stumbled. An old man then appeared and said to Wei Kuo, "I am the father of the concubine you spared. Today, I have come to repay your kindness." The idiom "nodding grass in gratitude," a reference to paying back a favor from beyond the grave, originates from this story, reminding people to deeply remember and repay kindness. Be tolerant of others' mistakes. King Zhuang of Chu once held a grand banquet for his ministers. During the banquet, a military officer took advantage of the darkness when the lights went out to pull the robe of a palace maiden. She managed to grab his hat tassel and reported the incident to the king. Instead of lighting the lamps to identify the culprit, King Zhuang declared, "We are here to drink and be merry, let's not let this small matter ruin the mood." He ordered everyone to pull off their hat tassels so no one would know who was at fault. Thanks to the king's tolerance, the officer later became a brave warrior who fought valiantly for the kingdom of Chu. Story 12. 3 mistakes one should never make in life. In life, everyone can make mistakes, but there are some mistakes that can be corrected, and others that leave lasting regret. Here are 3 mistakes a person should avoid. When disappointed, don't lose faith. In life, when facing adversity or failure, the most important thing is not to lose faith. Mencius once wrote, "Great men like King Shun, Fu Yu, and Guan Zhong all came from difficult and tough backgrounds. When heaven entrusts them with a great mission, it first makes their minds suffer, their bodies endure hardship, and their lives difficult. This is a process of training to help them become patient, learn, and develop their talents. When encountering failure, if we lose faith, we will fall into the trap of despair and easily slip into bad habits. Losing faith also means losing the opportunity to forge resilience and personal growth. When successful, don't forget who you are. When successful, people are often easily drawn into arrogance and forget themselves. The story of Troy is a clear lesson. After many years of fighting the Greeks, Troy eventually fell into the trap of the wooden horse. The Trojans brought the horse inside their city, celebrated with feasts, and let their guard down. The Greeks hidden inside the horse slipped out during the night, opened the city gates, and led to the catastrophic downfall of Troy. When we are overconfident and forget ourselves, we are prone to making big mistakes. Many people work hard all their lives to achieve success, but once they attain it, they fail to maintain their integrity, leading to self-destruction. Live true to your conscience. Conscience is the root of being human. A person may lack wealth or power, but they cannot live without a conscience. The story of Lu Ban, the master carpenter, is an example. Wang Yin, a student of Lu Ban, attempted to create a puppet similar to the one his master had made but failed. When he consulted Lu Ban, the master asked, "Did you measure everything?" Wang Yin replied that he had. Lu Ban then said, "You didn't measure the heart." And he emphasized, "A person without conscience cannot succeed." Conscience is the compass for all human actions. When we have a conscience, we naturally regulate ourselves and avoid mistakes. On the contrary, without conscience, all wealth and fame will only lead one to the brink of ruin. Third story: fame, wealth, and emotions, external attachments. Letting go brings peace. Buddhism often teaches that fame, wealth, and emotions are mere external attachments. When we are born, we bring nothing with us, and when we die, we take nothing away. Therefore, only when people realize that these things are like fleeting clouds can they truly let go and find peace within their souls. The greedy minister Niam Tung, blinded by greed, leading to destruction. Niam Tung, the head of the Ming dynasty's inner cabinet, was infamous for selling government positions and accepting bribes everywhere. His and his son Niam the Fiend's wealth exceeded even the national treasury. At one of his lavish birthday banquets, the gifts from officials piled up as high as a mountain. It seemed as if his prosperity would never end, but just a few years later, Niam Tung lost power, died without a proper burial, and Niam the Fiend was executed with all their wealth confiscated. The story of Niam Tung's steward, who once helped an imperial censor lost during the birthday celebration, illustrates the fleeting nature of power and wealth. The steward was spared from execution, though he was exiled, thanks to the kindness he had shown. This story reveals that what people hold onto can vanish in an instant. All fame and wealth, in the end, are illusions. Hoa then, embezzling to the end, but meeting a tragic fate. Hoa then, the notorious corrupt official during the Qing dynasty, embezzled over 1 billion taels of silver, amassing wealth far greater than the national treasury. However, despite his immense power and fortune, his fate was death by execution, leaving behind a legacy of scorn and mockery. Triat Tuong, letting go of wealth to avoid disaster. Triat Tuong, a well-known figure during the Han Dynasty, was born into a wealthy family where both his father and grandfather were high-ranking officials. However, he understood that hoarding too much wealth could lead to disaster. Instead of accumulating riches, Triat Tuong chose to use his family's fortune to help the poor in his region. When someone advised him to save wealth for his descendants, he responded, "If wealth comes within humanity, it is nothing but the seed of disaster." Triat Tuong referred to the story of Dao Tu Van of the state of Chu, who used his wealth to help the nation during difficult times. His philosophy was that only by letting go could one live peacefully, free from the chains of material wealth. Fame, wealth, and emotions, external attachments. Buddhism teaches, all fame, wealth, and emotions are external attachments. When born, we bring nothing, and when we die, we take nothing. Therefore, only when people know how to let go of these things can they escape the anxiety and turmoil of life and find true inner peace. Those who are always concerned with gain and loss, driven by greed and possessiveness, will ultimately find their souls tormented and unable to achieve tranquility. The 14th story, The Wise Know When to Let Go. There is an old saying, only when all means are exhausted do people think of letting go, but by then it is often too late. Throughout history, many have met their downfall because they failed to let go, while others found peace and freedom by knowing when to release their grasp. Zhang Liang, knowing when to let go after success. Zhang Liang was one of the three most outstanding heroes during the early Han Dynasty, instrumental in helping Liu Bang establish his rule over China. Renowned for his strategic brilliance, he was said to devise strategies behind the scenes that led to victories from afar. After the Han Dynasty was founded, Zhang Liang had reached the pinnacle of his career. However, instead of continuing in court, he chose to step back from fame and fortune. Zhang Liang once said, "For generations, my family served as prime ministers to the state of Han. Now, I have avenged the state and have been honored with a high position. My life's aspirations are fulfilled. From here on, I wish to follow Master Zichtung Tu to Rome and study the way, no longer concerned with worldly matters." Zhang Liang's decision baffled Liu Bang and many others, but history reveals the wisdom in his timing. By letting go at the right moment, Zhang Liang avoided a tragic fate. In contrast, Han Xian, another brilliant figure of the time, failed to retreat and was ultimately betrayed and killed. After Liu Bang's death, Empress Liu seized power and purged many loyal ministers. Had Zhang Liang stayed in court, he too might have become a target. Fan Li, knowing when to let go 3 times. Fan Li, who helped King Gojian of Yu defeat the state of Wu, chose to withdraw after their victory. He gave up everything, left the state of Yu, and lived in seclusion, later becoming a wealthy merchant. Fan Li accumulated great fortune 3 times in his life, and each time, he let go of his wealth, distributing it to the poor, his friends, and relatives. He is remembered not only for his prosperity but also for his virtuous character. Before leaving, Fan Li warned his friend, Wen Zhong, "When the birds are gone, the bows are put away. When the rabbits are hunted, the hunting dogs are killed." Gojian is a man with whom you can share hardship but not happiness. You should leave early. Wen Zhong, however, did not heed Fan Li's advice. Eventually, Gojian presented Wen Zhong with a sword, forcing him to take his own life. Wen Zhong died with deep regret for not listening to Fan Li. Letting go at the right time, a philosophy of life. The stories of Zhang Liang and Fan Li illustrate that the wise know when to let go. They understand that after reaching the peak of success, failing to step back can bring about disaster. Letting go is not only a means of self-preservation, but also a way to maintain the true essence and meaning of life. Story 15: The Foolishness of a Great Man of Righteousness. Being intelligent is difficult, but being foolish is even harder. Transitioning from intelligence to foolishness is the most difficult of all. This famous saying comes from Zhang Banqiao, a talented calligrapher and painter from the Qing dynasty. It reflects not only his profound philosophy on life, but also his noble character as a man who bore great responsibility for the people. Although renowned for his skills in calligraphy, painting, and poetry, Zhang Banqiao's career as an official was fraught with challenges. He was an honest and incorruptible official who cared deeply for the people, never seeking personal gain. While serving as a magistrate in Shandong, Zhang Banqiao became known for his simple lifestyle, often wearing humble clothing and personally visiting the people to understand their hardships. He used his own salary to help the poor, and he even supported talented students like Han Mengchu, who later became a successful scholar thanks to Zhang Banqiao's assistance. In a year of severe famine in Dui County, people were forced to sell their children and slaughter their livestock to survive. Faced with this dire situation, Zhang Banqiao personally opened the government granaries to distribute food, despite knowing that his actions could lead to punishment by the imperial court. He even carved a seal to express his heartfelt desire to relieve the people's suffering, saying, "I wish I could fill the sky-high debts and hunger with my own hands." When his subordinates advised him to stop, Zhang Banqiao responded, "If I am punished for saving the people, I am willing to bear it alone." Indeed, the imperial court eventually dismissed him for his actions. However, when he left his post, the people flocked to bid him farewell, demonstrating their deep respect and gratitude for this righteous official. After returning to Yangzhou, Zhang Banqiao made a living by selling his paintings while continuing to write poetry, paint, and create calligraphy. His works, especially his depictions of bamboo, orchids, and stones, stood out not only for their technical skill but also for the profound life lessons they conveyed, celebrating integrity, purity, and resilience. Zhang Banqiao's phrase "nan de hudu," "it is difficult to be foolish," expresses that to uphold righteousness, one must sometimes let go of personal gain and not allow greed and power to take over. His foolishness was not a pretense to avoid trouble, but the foolishness of a great soul willing to sacrifice personal interests to fulfill his responsibility to the people. This noble foolishness made him a shining example of righteousness, leaving behind an enduring legacy of honor and virtue. 16th story. The nobleman's heart is as steadfast as a mountain. In life, noblemen, Junzi, place great emphasis on cultivating their hearts and minds, maintaining a calm and peaceful state of mind. They do not argue over trivial matters, nor do they lose their temper over material gain. A nobleman who has trained their mind to be tranquil will not easily feel resentment or anger when faced with any situation. Zhao Er figures Zhang Lian and Lian Pe are famous examples from history. Lian Xiangru, a court official, always prioritized the safety of the nation, repeatedly enduring and avoiding conflict with Lian Pe. His steadfast patience and forbearance ultimately moved Lian Pe, who felt ashamed of his previous actions. From then on, the two became close friends, working together to help the Zhao state remain secure. In contrast, a petty person, with a narrow heart, will harm others and even themselves for minor personal gain. In old anecdotes of the Sui dynasty, there is a story about Zhang Ying, a scholar from the Qing dynasty, and his neighbor, the Wu family. When the Wu family built a wall encroaching on the shared land between their houses, Zhang Ying's family wrote to him for advice. Instead of arguing, Zhang Ying sent back a poem saying, "A letter from afar over a wall so small. Yield 3 feet of land, is it hard at all? The great wall still stands through ages gone. But where is the Qin emperor who built it on?" Moved by this, Zhang Ying's family yielded 3 feet of land, and the Wu family, touched by this gesture, also pulled their wall back by 3 feet. In the end, the two families created a 6-foot alley, a story that has been passed down through generations. A nobleman's heart is as steadfast as a mountain. Meng Jiao, a poet from the Tang dynasty, wrote in his poem Autumn Sentiments, "The nobleman stands firm like a mountain tall. Petty men quarrel over things so small." This means that a nobleman's heart is as steady as a mountain, unmoved by criticism or judgment. Conversely, a petty person forgets propriety and fights for the smallest of gains. Buddha himself was insulted but remained serene, becoming a shining example for all. There is a story about a high monk who passed through a village and was severely insulted by a group of villagers. However, the monk remained calm and said, "Thank you for coming to find me, but I am in a hurry now. I will have more time to listen to you tomorrow." The villagers were stunned and asked, "Didn't you hear us cursing you?" The monk calmly replied, "If you had met me 10 years ago, I might have reacted." But now I have learned to master myself and not be swayed by emotions. The lesson of forbearance and steadfastness. A nobleman does not fight for immediate gain, nor do they lose their moral compass in pursuit of fame. A heart that is as open and generous as the sea, capable of receiving hundreds of rivers, allows life to become free and at ease. Like a mountain standing tall between heaven and earth, the nobleman lives in peace, unaffected by the turbulence of the world around them. The 17th story, not losing your temper, is a mark of great wisdom. Only those who cultivate their character can control their emotions, refraining from anger in any situation. Because they do not give in to anger, their actions are rational, allowing them to calmly assess situations and make wise decisions. This is a quality of those with great wisdom. In Zhuangzi, there is a profound fable about controlling anger. King Xian of Qi instructed Jixing to train a fighting rooster. After 10 days, the king asked, "Is the rooster ready to fight?" Jixing replied, "Not yet, Your Majesty. The rooster is still too aggressive. It wants to fight before it even sees another rooster." Another 10 days passed, and the king asked again, "Is the rooster ready now?" Jixing replied, "Not yet, Your Majesty. The rooster is still easily provoked. Even the sight of another rooster makes it want to fight." After another 10 days, the king asked once more, "Is the rooster ready to fight?" Jixing answered, "Not yet, Your Majesty. The rooster is still trying to show off its strength and intimidate others." Finally, after several more days, the king asked, "Is the rooster ready now?" Jixing replied, "Yes, Your Majesty. The rooster is now calm. It no longer reacts when it hears or sees another rooster. It looks like a wooden rooster, but it has mastered all the fighting skills. Other roosters are intimidated just by its presence and will back away." Through this fable, Zhuangzi highlights the principle that only when a person can control their emotions can they achieve great things. As Zhuge Liang once said, laziness prevents mastery, and impulsive anger prevents rationality. When anger clouds judgment, people are prone to making mistakes. There is also a story about the famous Confucian scholar Wang Yangming. When Ning Wang rebelled against the imperial court, Wang Yangming quelled the rebellion within a month, sparing the nation from further losses. Despite his success, he was falsely accused of colluding with the rebels. Rather than getting angry, Wang Yangming calmly resolved the situation. He credited all the success to others, distanced himself from the disputes, and voluntarily resigned, peacefully avoiding further conflict. Later generations praised Wang Yangming, saying, even in times of crisis, he could foresee everything with godlike wisdom, his intellect unwavering. As the saying goes, deep waters flow slowly, and noble people speak softly. Not losing one's temper is not a sign of weakness, but rather a mark of great wisdom. 18th story, how the ancients dealt with malicious slander. Tolerating others not only shows kindness, but also helps resolve unnecessary conflicts. Below are examples of how people in the past responded to malicious words or slander. During the Northern Song dynasty, Tai Xiang attended a banquet at the Lin Dong Garden. During the banquet, a guest shot an arrow and injured someone visiting the garden. However, the guest accused Tai Xiang of firing the arrow. The story quickly spread across the capital and reached the emperor. When asked by the emperor, Tai Xiang did not defend himself but simply bowed and asked for forgiveness. Even after retiring from his official position, he never spoke of the incident, maintaining a calm and indifferent attitude toward the slander. In the Eastern Jin dynasty, Gao Feng served as an imperial censor in Qinzhou. Once, a student at a military school named Duan Hong Tian was caught stealing timber from the government to make household items. To avoid execution, Duan Hong Tian falsely claimed that Gao Feng had ordered him to do so. When Zhang Zhongyan questioned Gao Feng, he did not justify himself but accepted the blame. This saved Duan Hongtian from execution. Later, Zhang Zhongyan learned the truth that Gao Feng had accepted the blame only to save a life, and he rewarded Gao Feng generously. Another story is about Zhang Qithuang. While studying at the Taishui Academy, his family sent him 10 taels of gold. However, a roommate stole the gold. When the officials investigated and found the missing gold, Zhang Qithuang said, "This is not my gold." The roommate, moved by his generosity, returned the gold, and Zhang Qithuang even shared half of it with him, knowing he was struggling. Wu Lingyi from Taozhou was also known for his kindness. One night, a thief broke into his house. When Wu Lingyi's son caught the thief, he asked why, and the thief admitted he stole out of desperation. Instead of punishing him, Wu Lingyi gave him money to help him through his hardship. He even kept the thief overnight to ensure he wouldn't be caught carrying a large sum of money. In the end, the thief was so touched that he reformed and became an upstanding citizen. Zhang Tianhian, a renowned general during the Northern Song dynasty, also encountered a similar situation. At a banquet, he noticed a servant stealing silverware but did not expose him. Later, when the servant complained about not being promoted like others, Zhang Tianhian reminded him of the past theft and said, "I cannot recommend a thief for office. However, since you have served me for a long time, I will give you 300,000 coins to start a new life." The ancients often said, "Yielding a step makes the road wider." Those who know how to yield are not weak but wise. Yielding opens the way for others and brings peace and openness to one's own life. Letting go is not failure, it is winning over people's hearts. 19 Story, the scholar, a student must hold lofty aspirations. In ancient times, a true scholar was always characterized by a broad vision, tolerance, determination, and decisiveness, devoting themselves wholeheartedly to their country and people. No matter how well versed in classical texts, a student without firm resolve, clear principles, and personal convictions could not be considered a true scholar. In the Analects, Confucius said, "A scholar must have great aspirations and unwavering will because they bear the heavy responsibility of righteousness and morality." This is an important task, one that lasts until death. A scholar must possess kindness, a far-reaching vision, and strong perseverance to shoulder their responsibility to society and the nation. A scholar does not only treat their country, society, and others with benevolence, but also has the courage to take responsibility. As the saying goes, the rise and fall of the nation is the responsibility of every citizen. Whether high or low in status, a scholar must carry grand ideals and never abandon the cultivation of their personal character. Fan Zhongyan's aspirations from childhood. Fan Zhongyan is a classic example of a scholar with lofty ideals. From a young age, Fan Zhongyan harbored great ambitions. At the age of 5, he sought out a fortune teller to inquire about his future. He asked, "Will I become a prime minister?" The fortune teller was astonished by such a question from a young boy with great aspirations. Fan Zhongyan continued, "If I cannot become a prime minister, can I be a doctor?" Surprised, the fortune teller asked, "Why are these two things so different?" Fan Zhongyan replied, "Because a doctor can save people, but a prime minister can help even more people." Even at a young age, he carried the ideal of serving and helping others. Later, Fan Zhongyan devoted himself to his studies and eventually became a prime minister. He used his wealth to buy public lands and help the poor, realizing his noble ideals. When he passed away, his descendants continued his acts of kindness, and the Fan family flourished for 800 years. The aspirations of a scholar. Fan Zhongyan once said, "A scholar, whether in high office or wandering the world, must strive to worry before others worry, and find joy only after others have found joy. This idea reflects a desire to govern and benefit society, to care for the prosperity of the country and the people. But to fulfill such a grand ideal, a scholar must first cultivate themselves, strengthen their will, and develop the perseverance needed to complete their responsibilities. In today's society, there is much emphasis on imparting knowledge and skills, but little focus on the principles of being a good person. How many teach young students that they have responsibilities to their nation, society, and family, and that they must have the resilience and strength to fulfill those duties? The 20th story: why do wise people not explain themselves when misunderstood? Life doesn't always require debates over right or wrong, or arguments about who is superior or inferior. In dealing with others, sometimes letting go of stubborn pride and refraining from explaining too much is the choice of a wise person. Along life's path, we often feel the urge to explain ourselves to avoid misunderstandings. But the more we try to explain, the more we may realize that it doesn't help and might even make the situation worse. Hence, choosing silence over explanation is a sign of maturity. Silence, the choice of the wise. A gentleman does not need to explain their own nobility, just as a tall mountain does not need to explain its height, but still stands tall in the clouds. The ocean does not need to explain its depth, but it continues to receive water from 100 rivers. The earth does not need to speak about its thickness, yet it remains vast and supports all living things. Similarly, in life, not everything requires an argument or explanation. People often waste time on unnecessary things. Here are some thoughts we should consider. Don't judge others as good or bad, as it does not affect your own life. Don't judge others' morality, as you cannot be sure that you are better than them. Don't judge someone else's family, as it has nothing to do with you. Don't judge others' education, as learning is boundless and requires a lifetime of effort. Don't judge anyone, even those you hold in low regard. Don't spend money recklessly, for tomorrow you could be the one facing unemployment. Don't be arrogant, because tomorrow you might encounter difficulties. Don't boast, as no one is inferior to you. Don't rely on others, because everyone has their own burdens. Don't hurt others, for the law of cause and effect will eventually come to pass. Living without the need to explain oneself is the choice of the truly wise. Don't get angry easily, no one owes you anything. Life brings much suffering, but as time passes and you look back, you will realize that many things were not worth worrying about. Is the world unfair? In truth, we don't even know who we are in this life. Lessons from silence and self-reflection. We should not judge whether someone is practicing well or not, as every person is a reflection of ourselves. If we are too critical, we will have no friends. Sometimes life requires a bit of foolishness, because being too sharp-witted will only exhaust us. Letting go and living freely. Don't place too much importance on fame and fortune. Living simply will bring you more freedom. The more you give, the more you receive. Learning to be tolerant will fill your life with light. Practice letting go, for the earth will continue to spin without you. In reality, what we experience in life is determined by our own mindset. Living with a calm mind and not discussing others' affairs is the way to progress and self-development. Enduring hardship is not a sign of foolishness but of great ambition. Take a step back, and the sky and sea will become vast. Even when triumphant, don't become overly elated. Always leave yourself an exit path.